Hello and welcome to Chapter Chat with Sarah. Here we share true life stories. Some of these stories have been locked behind closed doors, hiding secrets. Some of those secrets so bad it will make you wonder how they even survived. We do not use real names, and that's to help protect identities. And it's not our intention to expose or hurt anyone. But the stories are real, and they are being told for all the right reasons. Today we are continuing our conversation with Max. If you missed the first part, you can find that and other episodes on my website, sarahshaw.org. Max is one of the true life characters in my first book, Two Sisters and the Four-Leaf Clover. Max, the second book, Healing Your Life One Leaf at a Time, which is 19 chapters of true life storage. That book came about because after the first book, people were reaching out and wanting to tell their story as well. You are chapter 12, and the subtitle of your chapter is You Can't Keep Me Down, No Matter How Hard You Try. When you say you left, where did you go? So, and at what age? I think that's significant. And then, because we talked about, the timeline of your life in foster care, the life with your stepfather, your life in the Marine Corps.
Well, when I left home, I was 17 years old. I was actually a senior in high school. And I skipped school one day and went to the Marine recruiter and talked to him about joining the Marines. He said I didn't have to have a high school education. I didn't have to have a diploma. I could get that when I got in the service. Well, I signed the paper to join the Marines. He told me that because I was 17, that my mother would have to sign the papers. I went home from school that afternoon, and I walked in, and I know it hurt my mom, but I knew I had to get out of there. And I told my mother, there's a Marine recruiter coming to see you at 6 o'clock. He's got papers for you to sign. If you don't sign the papers, when I turn 18, I'll walk out of this house and you'll never see me again. The recruiter came, Mom signed the papers. In December of 1974, I was enlisted in the Marine Corps. In the beginning, I was doing pretty fair. But as time went, and I would call my mom and hear her crying and everything, which I knew what was going on, I got upset, started having nightmares about the abuse. I would even sit and think about ways that I could possibly kill this man and get away with it. But I knew that wasn't really the answer, because there's really no getting away with it.
Right.
Because it'd just be something else I would have to live with as I went on through life. So I decided that maybe I need to see a psychiatrist, psychologist, somebody who knew how to help someone through things like this that we'd been through. I went, made an appointment to go to the psychologist on the base. I went to my appointment. We sat there. We talked a few minutes, just regular talk. And he asked me how he could help me. And I told him, I said, I've had a bad childhood and I'm having a hard time dealing with it. He asked me if I could elaborate on it. So I started telling him some of the things that went on. I told him about the sexual abuse. I told him about the physical abuse. Long story short, after I sat there basically and poured my guts out, he sat there and looked at me. He said, son, I'm going to tell you something. He said, when you think you can come back and tell me the truth about what happened in your childhood, you can come back and talk to me. Because there's absolutely no way that a child could live through the things that you say happened to you. Well, from that minute on, I didn't have no faith whatsoever in psychiatrists, psychologists, any counselors, or anything. It just crushed me.
It's just another example of no place to turn. You turn to the authorities to get your stepfather turned in, and nothing. You go to seek help, and again, nothing, because no one believes you. And that's part of what we're trying to do in sharing our stories about what truly happened, because we need to raise awareness. These things do take place. There are children and domestic violence as well, besides child abuse, that happens every single day. We need to be listening. So it's so important you sharing this. So I didn't mean to interrupt. Please go on.
Oh, that's fine. So here I am, stuck again, nowhere to turn, nowhere to go. So I started drinking. I didn't become an alcoholic or anything like that. I didn't get in trouble over drinking or anything. And I started dabbling in drugs. And 1986, after almost 12 full years in the Marine Corps, I was medically discharged for injury to my ankle and for what they call exercise induced asthma, where I couldn't do the physical fitness test. I was discharged, got mixed up in drugs worse, to where I actually had cocaine habit, which through the time I'd been married 4 times, divorced 4 times, where I ended up in prison. I knew I'd heard about God and the Bible. I never really read the Bible or anything before then. And, a lot of people use the expression, you go to prison, learn religion, become a Bible thumper. Well, for some, that may be true, but it's not for everyone. I went to prison. Well, let me back up just a second, because once I got out of the Marine Corps and all, just to give an idea of how hard a time I could have had while I was taking and going through those years, I was a truck driver. I was a correctional officer at a maximum security prison. I was a deputy sheriff in the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Department, and I worked in warehouse. So then, after all this, I end up in prison. Well, needless to say, going in, I'm thinking, well, it's going to be rough, because there's 2 things that prisoners don't like. That's correctional officers and cops. Before I got my sentence, I really started seeking God, because I knew that I was looking at some long time. I went, told my attorney, he was a court-appointed attorney, that plea agreement that I would take would be 20 years split sentence. That's 20 years in prison, 10 years on probation. He laughed at me. He came back with other deals that the DA was willing to do, and I refused them. And the day of my court date, he shows up at the jail at 4:30 in the morning and has the plea agreement in his hand for exactly what God told me I would do. 10 in prison, 10 on probation.
Such a blessing.
Yes, it was. And that's when I knew that there was a God, because the last sentence they was trying to offer me was 75 years, do 50 years, 25 on probation.
Wow.
It definitely was a blessing.
Yes, prayer answered for sure.
So I got transferred to Georgia State Penitentiary. I remember the bus ride, just sitting there saying, Lord, how do I keep them from finding out I used to be a cop? I used to be a correction officer. And all he did was just put this peace in me, saying, you got this. And that was God telling me he's got this. Not one time during the first 6 years of my incarceration did anyone ever know or suspect that I was a cop or a correction officer. Well, I got transferred to this prison, and I was there probably about 6 months. Things still going good. I was strong in the Lord. I wouldn't let nobody tell me anything different. I'd done Bible studies. I'd done groups and everything else. I actually became a licensed minister while I was in there. The thing that really helped me the most at this prison was there was a nonprofit organization called Kairos. And it's a group of people from different denominations, different religions that come together as one, come into the prison, share their life experiences, takes and helps others become stronger in the Lord or get to come to know the Lord. There was a few of the men that came in, got to know me real well. They took and knew my history with the abuse and everything. And it was just like a whole new life. Even though I was inside those gates, I still had peace. I had peace in my heart, knowing that there's a light at the end of this tunnel, knowing that there is people who could love me, not just say the words, I love you, but actually tell me I love you and mean it, whether it was as a brother, a son, or a brother in Christ. Time came, I was coming up on my release date. My release date was December the 25th, 2006, Christmas Day. I'd already submitted the paperwork to have my probation transferred to Kentucky where I could come home and be with my family. Because my family, they drove from Kentucky to Georgia many times to visit. So I knew they loved me. I knew they were here for me. Somewhere along the lines, the paperwork got messed up and I couldn't come home to Kentucky. Well, I had nowhere to go in Georgia. And there was this one brother in Kairos who knew I was about to get released. And he actually told me, he said, I'll be here the morning you get released to walk out those doors, those gates. Well, I explained to him that I didn't know where I was going or anything else. Just something I had to depend on God because I couldn't come back to Kentucky. Well, it's probably 2 or 3 weeks after that, we had a Kairos meeting, and that brother come in, and he said, I'll be here to pick you up. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I'll be here when you get released to pick you up. I said, how's that going to happen? He says, I've already talked to the authorities, and stuff. And God told me that I can trust you. Well, sure enough, Christmas Day comes. Christmas morning, this man and his daughter shows up at the prison. I walk out the gate, and there they are. Now, you talk about excitement and everything. Well, now keep in mind, I never met his daughter. I only knew him and his wife because the wives of the Kairos members was allowed to come in on the graduation. So I walk out, me and this brother hugs. He introduces me to his daughter. I stuck my hand out to shake her hand. And she looked at me and said, "There's no handshakes in this." And she hugged my neck. You talk about a feeling. You talk about God's love. You talk about how great God is. There is no greater feeling than knowing that God is shining up on you, which is what he did for me that day.
What an amazing gift and Christmas gift, on that day for you.
Well, up until that Christmas, that was the best Christmas I ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
Because not only did that brother take me to his house, when we got there, well, first off, he took me to Walmart so I could and he actually bought me clothes to where I could get out of prison clothes that you get released in. So that when you walk around, people don't realize that you just got out of prison.
Okay.
So I just took my prison clothes and threw them in the garbage can in Walmart. So we leave Walmart, we get to the house, we walk in, his wife runs up and hugs me. She's got breakfast fixed. So we sit down, we eat breakfast, and the brother he says, time to open gifts. Well, I didn't want to impose. This is family time. I knew that's what it's supposed to be as far as holiday wise, So I just sat at the table. Everybody else got up, started walking to the living room. Well, the daughter turns around and reaches over, grabs my hand. She says, "Come on." I said, "No." I said, "I don't want to impose you. I'll go enjoy yourself." She looked at me and she says, "Well, there might be something under the tree for you too. You are family."
Oh my gosh.
This is a person who never met me a day in her life and knew that I came from prison. But it's because of the love that God put in her heart for others and with the beliefs and everything that her mom and dad raised her with. God says, "Judge not, lest you be judged."
Right.
I know for a fact to this very day that young lady has never judged me for anything because we're still in contact to this day, the whole family.
Isn't that wonderful? Absolutely wonderful.
It really is. Since coming home from prison, it wasn't easy at first. I did my 10 years on probation, and a few months after I was home and everything, met this wonderful woman. We dated. We're now man and wife. Just celebrated our 10-year anniversary last year.
Wow.
And God has blessed us in so many ways. I mean, we've had our ups and downs. We've had our hard times and everything. But because of our strength in God, we make it through. God has blessed us in more ways than one. God has brought me through more miracles. And if you don't believe in miracles, here's one you can believe. In 2013, I literally split my face in half from my nose all the way through my chin, my neck, and had part of my hand messed up and chest where a grinding disc exploded on me. Now, my wife and I wasn't married at the time. We were living together, and I was at the neighbor's house when this happened. He seen what happened, and I just thank God he didn't panic. He went into action, grabbed a bunch of paper towels, gave me to hold on my face, called 911. By the time he got off the phone with 911, he grabbed another handful of paper towels because the one I had soaked, and he had noticed that a piece of the blade was still stuck in my face, and he pulled it out. And that was really the only way I got the bleeding to slow down. We actually met the ambulance on the highway, and the helicopter was already sitting at the hospital, which was approximately 7-8 miles away. I went straight to the helicopter, and the last thing I remember when I got in that helicopter was them telling them I was already code red. 8 days later, I woke up. They kept me out the whole time because of the severity of my injuries. During that time, I didn't know, but I found out that my fever had spiked up to over 105. They had to lay me in a tub of ice to break the fever. Still don't know what caused it. Had a hard time coming off the respirator. It took them 3 different times to finally get me off of it because for some reason I couldn't breathe on my own. And finally they got me off of it. I done good that day. The next day I was doing better, well enough to where they went ahead and released me to come home. But if you don't think God does miracles, one of the surgeons told me that if that blade had went in the width of the blade, which is less than a 16th of an inch more, it would hit the back of my jugular.
Wow.
Which means I would not be here today, much less talk.
Right. Right. Your life has truly been filled with so many tragedies and near death experiences, and yet, I find you saying that you're happy, you're content, and you see purpose in your life, and it's because of getting married and having God as such an important part of your life. Your faith in God is just really, really revealing.
Well, and it is. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the perfect Christian. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't do things wrong, because I do. There wasn't but one person that was perfect, and that was Jesus.
That's right.
I stumble, I fall every day, but I know that my help is always in God. If you reach out and take and keep your faith and trust in God, knowing that He is all powerful, almighty, and all forgiving, you'd be surprised what life can be.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely, telling something that we all need to remember and hear. And I think that what you're sharing is a good time to, try to close out, and before we say thank you for being here today, if there was one message that you wanted to close with today for our listeners, and I think you've already started sharing on that, what is it that you want to leave this podcast today with saying?
Well, first off, I would just like for people to know that abuse never stops. I'm not talking about as far as my abuse, but there's others out there that's getting abused every day. Pay attention to the children. A good example, if it's 97 degrees outside, they're wearing long sleeve shirts. There's a reason for it. It's not because they're cold. More than likely, they're trying to cover marks up. If they're being real shy, don't want to be around nobody, pay attention to it. Abuse is just as bad today as it was years ago. People need to open up their eyes. They pay them more attention and all. And one thing I do want to mention, even though people don't realize it, it's not just children who basically are in the right mind or anything of that nature, but also there's handicapped children, adults that's abused every day. So please pay attention to it.
Okay, Max, can't thank you enough for that. This has been a very special, conversation. A lot of pouring out of a lot of important details about, things that happen in our life and how we have to try to survive, and then bringing God into, the whole existence of this. That this is what got you through. It was your faith in God. I wondered
Yeah.
how your experience would be in prison after what you suffered as a child, that for you to come out of there and be where you're at today and happily married is truly truly a blessing. I want to say thank you so much for your time today, and we hope that maybe we can connect again and share a little bit more. So thanks again, Max.
You're welcome, and thank you for listening. The main thing I would like to say in closing is that if you don't have God in your life, seek Him. You won't regret it.
Okay, good information. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you.
So that's all for today. Before we go, we want to let you know that both of these books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookstores. You can also follow me on my website, sarahshaw.org, Facebook at Sarah Shaw, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please tune in for our next show and our special guest, Carol, who shares her story about the National Orphans Home, a home that got it right. Remember this verse before we close. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. Philippians 4:13.